Did you know that Iraq is said to have the greatest oil production growth potential in all of the Middle East? After we give some history on oil in Iraq, we will explore exactly how much oil and gas Iraq has and what is preventing the country from fully exploiting these reserves. We will look at the strengths and weaknesses of Iraq's oil industry and how these could affect the country's future.
Iraq is located in the continent of Asia, Western Asia, and is bordered by 6 countries: Iran, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, and Turkey. The oil in Iraq has been known for centuries since ancient Babylonians, but the discovery and extraction began in the early 20th century. Oil was discovered by the Ottoman Empire during their invasion to Iraq. By 1912, TPC was formed and was the first company to explore for oil. In 1918, Ottoman Empire was collapsed. After the collapse of Ottoman Empire, IPC was founded. In 1928, Iraq started producing oil at a rate of 2,800 barrels per day from Baba Gurgur, which is located in Kirkuk. By 1960, the OPEC was formed by a conference took place in Baghdad. The oil was nationalized in 1972. The Gulf War of 1991 led the United Nations to put the country in sanctions. Because of these sanctions, the country could not participate in oil market as needed from 1991 to 2003. After 2003, Iraq became a free oil seller in the market.
Iraq has all the potential of being a global energy powerhouse. The vast amount of resources available, paired with its geographical location, make it a top country for prospective development. The amount of oil and natural gas available is not being produced optimally due to the lack of infrastructure in place. However, Iraq's proven oil and gas reserves rank among the highest in the world. Extraction is less complicated and cheaper, and their current oil fields have proven that they could one day be a top global manufacturer. These advantages, when paired with optimal infrastructure, would put Iraq on top as an oil and gas producer. In 2012, Iraq was ranked as the 8th biggest producer of crude oil. Iraq also ranks 5th in proven oil reserves in the world. Only a small percentage of the known petroleum fields are currently being developed due to their lack of infrastructure. The current proven reserves of oil in Iraq sits at 143.1 billion barrels. Iraq alone makes up for 8.7% of the total global reserves. As of this year, Iraq's proven natural gas reserves ranks as the 12th largest in the world. Iraq's proven natural gas reserves sits at 112 trillion cubic feet. Iraq has the potential to produce an approximated $5 trillion in revenue from oil production. A main advantage of Iraqi oil wells is the geology of the area. Drilling in Iraq is far less complex and expensive than compared to the United States. On average, in the U.S. and Canada, as recorded in 2009, extraction costs were over $12 per barrel. In comparison, Iraq's average was only recorded at $5 per barrel. Iraq has some of the largest and highest producing wells in all of the world. The Rumelia field, located in the southern part of the country, produces close to 1.35 million barrels per day and has an estimated oil reserves of 17.7 billion barrels. The Rumelia field makes up for over a third of Iraq's total crude production.
Even though Iraq may have world-class oil reserves, the country is lacking in one important aspect: infrastructure. In the oil and gas industry, infrastructure can include refineries, terminals, and pipelines. Most of the damage done to the infrastructure has been due to ongoing conflicts within the country. Iraq's 4 major refineries are the Baiji, Basra, Dora, and Samawa. The Baiji is Iraq's largest refinery, supporting 11 out of 18 of its provinces. It can only reach 70% of its production capacity. It's limited by a shortage of crude oil feedstock, frequent cuts in power, and many years of war that have damaged infrastructure. Terminals, pipelines, and refineries have all been impacted by the wars. The Iraq-Iran War, Gulf Wars, and U.S. invasion in 2003 have all damaged Iraq's oil productions in some way. The pictures on the slide show how sabotage has damaged key parts of the infrastructure. The rightmost picture is of Iraq's largest refinery, and the one on the left shows a damaged pipeline. Many events like these have kept Iraq from reaching its full potential and production levels. In addition to the war's conflicts, Iraq has run into problems regarding drilling. In order to increase the amount of oil that can be produced, Iraq needs to inject either natural gas or water to maintain pressures in the well. This is a problem because currently natural gas is being flared and fresh water is a scarce resource in Iraq. This means seawater will likely be used. However, the necessary pipelines needed to transport the water have not been built yet. In addition to needing seawater, Iraq also needs more electricity to support the industry. Oil and gas is the largest industrial consumer of electricity in Iraq. However, the country has struggled to power itself, with widespread shortages common. In order to increase the oil production, Iraq needs to improve upon the energy sector.
Iraq's largest political problems comes from three of its provinces, which are partially self-governed, known as the Kurdistan region. These problems come from the vague terms of its constitution that allow the province to bypass the central government. The Kurdish regional government believes they can sign their own contracts for oil production, but the central government in Baghdad disagrees. In 2006, international oil companies started drilling in Kurdistan. After these companies began drilling, the Iraq central government began to blacklist some of these companies who signed with the KRG. Iraq and Iran have also had previous conflicts over oil. Both countries are members of OPEC, which set output quotas on oil based upon the country's reserve. In 2009, Iraq signed a contract that would significantly increase its oil output, which set off a series of reserve wars, where each country kept raising their reserve estimates so they could output more oil. Iraq is still allowed to output as much oil as needed so they can recover from the wars. Another detrimental problem to Iraq has been their physical stealing of oil from their pipelines by smugglers. The stealing is called bunkering and involves the taking of oil from pipelines in simple or complex manners and then selling it. It is estimated that up to 70% of oil is being taken from some fields and then being sold illegally.
You've seen that Iraq has some of the greatest untapped oil reserves in the world. Iraq definitely has the potential to become a wealthy oil nation like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, with a key location in between the demanding markets of Asia and Europe. New export facilities and oil tankers are planned in the Persian Gulf to allow them to export more oil worldwide. Similarly, new pipelines connecting Iraq to the ports of Turkey and Jordan would be beneficial, so that Iraq has multiple ways to export their oil. Iraq also has room to expand and upgrade their refineries. Iraq currently has 4 new refineries planned. If the Iraqi government can swiftly develop and restore these facilities, the possibilities for increased production are significant. Likewise, if infrastructure is built to capture and export the natural gas currently being flared, Iraq could not only meet their own electricity needs but also flourish as a top LNG exporter. As you can see, Iraq can determine their future and the wealth of their people by investing in this new infrastructure. The new facilities to produce, refine, and export oil could triple Iraq's current production, boosting them from 3.2 million barrels a day to 9.5. The main threat that would keep Iraq from realizing this potential is political turmoil. Democracy is new to Iraq, and passing laws and policies to push these infrastructure plans forward are slow and tedious. On top of that, the central government in Baghdad must also negotiate with the Kurds in the north, where political tension is constant. As Iraq is stabilizing, more international companies such as Shell and Petronas are investing in Iraq's oil fields. But if old rivalries between Iraq and Iran or Iraq and Saudi Arabia cause increased tension, then these companies may pull out. Furthermore, any war or conflict would destroy these new facilities and keep Iraq where it has been for decades. The instability of the Middle East is always a high concern.
Now let's review the history of Iraq. Oil for production purposes was discovered by the Ottoman Empire, and production climbed steadily until World War I. After the war, British and American companies helped boost production in Iraq through the Near East Development Company. The Iraqi National Company was created in 1964, and the industry was nationalized by 1972. Production increased until the UN placed sanctions on Iraq for its 1991 invasion of Kuwait. Then, the U.S. invasion of Iraq led to the deposition of Saddam Hussein and the reopening of free markets in Iraq. Now let's review the strengths and weaknesses of the Iraqi oil industry. The strengths include vast oil reserves that are comparable to any nation. Also, foreign businesses are willing and eager to invest in the future of Iraqi oil. Weaknesses include a lack of modern infrastructure from negligence and prolonged conflict. Iraq also continues to have problems with its northern Kurdistan region. This amalgamation of traits makes Iraq a particularly interesting case study. Overall, Iraq has a vast potential for growth. There are large reserves as well as people willing to invest. However, in order for this potential to be developed, there must be an absence of external threats and conflict for the government to remain stable. Overall, we have concluded that Iraq is a risky but worthwhile investment for all potential investors.